We're back, and we're talking more about the final week of practice before Virginia Tech week and ceiling and floor with our guy, JD Pickell. JD Pickell from On3 joins the show. We've got a great 30 minutes upcoming for you. Locked On Gamecocks starts right after this.
You are Locked On Gamecocks, your daily podcast on the South Carolina Gamecocks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Locked On Gamecocks. I'm your host, Chris Marler. I hope everyone's having a fantastic start to your Tuesday or Tuesday night, Wednesday, whenever you're listening to this, whatever it may be. I appreciate you guys joining and watching the show. Thank you to everyone making Locked On Gamecocks your first listen each and every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Remember, we're a free and available podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, before we get into today's show, I want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's show, and it's a big one, big show that is, and a big sponsor as well. This episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, all capital letters, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Now, we're bringing in JD Pickell from On3. Great dude, fantastic hair, and he's got some feelings, some strong ones about the South Carolina Gamecocks this year. So without further ado, let's bring our guy, JD Pickell, on the show. Best hair just the best hair in the game. Cannot say it enough. I've already said it off camera once. You knew I was going to bring it up on there. Look at this dude.
Man, I'm taking this certain supplement called Nutrafol because I had like some of this going for a little bit. Not a sponsor. If they want to get in the game, we can talk about that. But that does a lot for the ego headed into this year. You look good, man. You're selling yourself short here.
It's very much under the hair. It's Kim Jong-un going on right now, and I don't love it.
I wasn't sure if you were going to say that. I saw you tweet it, and I was like, huh. That's a pretty –
I went into Supercuts, and she's like, what would you like? And I was like, I don't know how to say this without it sounding like it's inappropriate, but just like a typical white person haircut. Like, just a white dude in his 30s. Just give me a haircut. And she was like, okay. And then she was like, what about Kim Jong-un instead? And I was like, yeah, let's do that. That's my stylist. That's my leader. Speaking of leaders, let's get into this. We got a quick interview here with JD Pickell On3. Just does a phenomenal job over there. And it's been in the offseason for a long time. Feels like I keep thinking this dude, the college football offseason can't get any dumber. And it's like, we're just so close. We're so close. And it's like, how many more stupid things can happen? And every day that I've woken up for the past 7 days, something stupider has happened. Not even a word, but stupider has happened than the day before. Auburn claiming 1,000 national titles. Like, how are you enjoying the offseason?
Dude, my thing is whenever the headlines get to this territory, like for me, it was over when we're talking about like socializing a 28-team college football playoff. I was like, oh, you guys know what time it is. Like, you understand. You have this window of 7 more days, less than that now, where college football is not being played. So, let's just it's like when you're at the arcade and you're trying to get as many just shots up and pop a shot. And you're like, 3, how many can we get to?
2, 1.
Get the shot up. So, it's time for football to be played. It has been kind of a long off season. I was thinking about that today. The stretch between this national title ending and then getting to July flew by, and then July took its time. August is taking its time. But now, dude, we're here. Farmageddon this weekend. We're here, bro.
Let's just dive into it then. Thoughts on South Carolina going into the season? I feel like the concerns are all pretty obvious. How do you replace the NFL talent from a year ago? You and I talked about this, I think, in Atlanta briefly, just kind of debunking the idea that Lenore Sellers is not a good thrower. I think that's a little bit far-fetched. But what do you think the ceiling and floor is for this team?
I think ceiling is a playoff team. I think floor, I have a hard time seeing them winning less than 7 games.
Yeah,
that to me would be a bit shocking. And a lot of that is we're just with Lenore Sellers. The ceiling to me is you get a phase-on eligible. And I don't know what's going on with that time of this, getting out to the masses. I know it's kind of touch and go. It feels like every other day I hear something new about someone feeling good or bad. But regardless, Nicholas Harbor rounding into football player form and all those things. So if he gets the supporting cast that he needs, who's stopping a fully armed South Carolina with Lenore Sellers playing his best ball? Now, if he doesn't get any of that, I still think they're a 7-win team because Lenore Sellers, I think it has a chance and will be the best player in college football not named Jeremiah Smith. I think he's that good.
Yeah, I agree. I think and I'm with you on the floor too. The floor just seems like it's been elevated so much in the last year or so because like there's times in the past like, well, I don't know, like how they beat Kentucky. And it just maybe we're all getting ahead of our skis here, but it also does feel very like I would just be shocked if that's a game they struggle with. And like I think the biggest test for me going into the season to know where this team really is, Virginia Tech's gonna be tougher than I think than people realize. And that game at Missouri, just the way that they want to go about it, and also what Drinkwitz has done. Like I tell you what worries me more than anything, JD, is this. Like we've seen coaches get under Beamer's skin and him get out of his element. We saw it with Kiffin last year when he started, like he ran the fake on his own 40, down 7. We saw it with Bielema in the Cheez-It Bowl. But like Drinkwitz is a guy that's had nothing but success against the South Carolina team until last year. That's the game that I have circled. It's like, okay, if they win that, then I start feeling really good about the season. What's a game on the schedule you think that they're not talking enough about with South Carolina?
Yeah, as we have it pulled up, I'm looking at it right now with, you talked about the Missouri game. I think that's a good one. I think the LSU game is super fascinating. And, dude, I have not only, like, drank all the LSU Kool-Aid I can find, picked the national championship, like, I'm all in on LSU. And I think that they have one loss on the season. I think it's to South Carolina. Like, South Carolina probably should have won that game a year ago.
Yeah,
right? If Lenore Sellers doesn't get hurt, they probably start to pull away a little bit. I don't think they totally pull away and make it, like, ugly, but it felt like there was no answer for 16. And that was just going to be kind of how that game went. So I know it's in Baton Rouge. I know that LSU will, I'm sure, be the more talented quote unquote team. But I think 16 just gives you that extra juice. Speaking to your identity point about like the floor for South Carolina, I just want to make sure I mention this. At the end of, I guess it was the 2022 season where they have those 2 top 10 wins, and like I'm talking about momentum and all these vibes around South Carolina. Even that felt like so poppy. You know what I mean? Like it felt such a massive peak to where there was no other data to indicate that we shouldn't believe that. Right. But South Carolina, as opposed to being like this in the 2022 season, feels like they've kind of just been a slow but sure linear progression, which I trust a lot more in 2025.
Linear progression. That's what I want to talk about next. Like your favorite mathematical terms. You're a guy that went to Cornell. Let's talk about this first.
Oh, no, I'm kidding. Man. I was like, hotel administration was not covering a lot of those things.
Wait, were you hotel administration?
Hotel administration, man. Yep. There was no broadcasting major. That's another story for another time. I know we're tight for time, but
yeah. No, we're gonna talk this off air at some point though.
Yeah,
I had a teacher at Georgia College State University that was like, you should try to go to Cornell because they have a great hotel management thing. And I was like, have you been familiar with any of the assignments I've turned in to think I could go to like Cornell? Like, what are you talking about? Anyway, so I'm looking at this team. I think you're exactly right because you got talk about 2022. It felt like there was nowhere to go but down. There's also been just like you know about the floor being raised. The floor of talent on this team has also been raised, and I am just a proponent of this. So I look at the LSU game specifically with what you said. I think that LSU is going to be very good. I've got to see them almost every day in practice. Like they look really good. I think that's one of those teams, dude, that's like down the line is when they start putting it all together. Like they're a slow build into the season. I feel like South Carolina is going to hit the ground running based on what we saw last year. And I also think that they've got some guys on that roster that are going to be a little bit more talented than people think. Is there anybody outside of the obvious big 3 on offense or even on defense you think people aren't talking enough about?
I think Mazio Bennett might be a guy this year, man. Like he kind of popped a little bit last year, and he doesn't have the same flash or like name appeal of a Nicholas Harbor, and I don't think he's quite as known nationally. But I feel like just every time I watched a South Carolina game last year, and there was a lot of them, it's like, oh, big play down the field, who was that? Mazio Bennett. Oh, timely catch there, who? Mazio Bennett. So to me, like flashes like that just sort of stick with me over time, as I think they do probably just any random college football fan that watches South Carolina.
Yeah.
I think this is one of those years where he builds upon that. Lenoris progresses even further in an offense that hopefully caters more to his skill set. I think they have success.
Yeah, agreed. Last question for you, and I'll let you go. Hot take. Give me one hot take about this team.
A hot take about South Carolina. Well, this is where I would have used the bullet of they beat LSU, and LSU wins the national championship. So if I can't say that, I would say My hot take is I think they are in the playoff discussion all the way until the end of the college football season. Like I think Clemson's really freaking good, which is not anything that's going to get me like welcomed back on this podcast. So I guess this is my swan song here. I think they'll play Clemson for a shot at the college football playoff. And if you think they beat Clemson, then like they're in the playoff, and I'll be happily wrong, and I'll enjoy watching Lenore Sellers do Lenore Sellers things in the 12-team playoff.
Yeah, if only there was some way we could see them have any kind of recent success against them on the field the past couple of years. It'd be crazy. JD, I appreciate you, brother. I would tell everyone to say go find where you are, but everyone knows where you are. I appreciate the time, dude. We'll do it again soon.
Appreciate you. Always a blast.
Always great to have JD on. Great dude. Did this last year too. Part of this is just full disclosure. Little bit of just kind of trying to bring back some good vibes from last year and some good luck. Those are two of the guys we had on before last season, JD Pickell, Josh Pate. We're going to do that again this week, like I said. Before we go to break, we're going to come back and talk a little bit about Russell Faison. We're going to talk about the latest there and some other stuff as well, just some news and notes from the roster and fall camp. Before we do, I want to give a shout out to our friends at Drip Drop. If you're trying to stay on top of your routine, man, I am dying today. I had to get up 4:45. Pepper was sick, the dog, just not feeling great. And I always notice whenever I'm on top of my hydration, I notice everything else works better. My energy, my mood, my focus, even my skin. But getting enough fluids every day isn't always easy. And that's why I've been loving Drip Drop. Drip Drop is a doctor-developed and scientifically proven fast for hydration packet. And it uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the amount of electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. I brought this up the other day. The reason I love it the most isn't the flavor, isn't what it does for my body. More than anything, it's the fact that some of these sports drinks, Gatorade, Powerade, some of those things like that, they are scientifically proven to have 11 times worse effects for your teeth enamel than Coke, soda, whatever you want to call it, as long as it's not pop. But that's one of the number of reasons I love Drip Drop. You don't have that effect. And right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. Also, want to give a big shout out to another sponsor for today's episode, and that is Prize Picks. Listen, this episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason's already heating up. College football isn't far behind, okay? Whether you've got your eye on big-name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in the game. I tell you what, I personally love it because it has the most up-to-date live betting structures imaginable. It also has the latest and most up-to-date and favorable first quarter and first half lines. Anybody that's followed the show before knows I love to make money betting on games and wagering on games. I love to do it in the first half and first quarter and play teams that score first as well. You can do all that when you go to Prize Picks, okay? Now, the other part of Prize Picks that I love more than anything, how about the fact that when you go pick a player, hey, this guy's going to go over this amount of yards. You can go over this amount of touchdowns, whatever it is. It's so simple, and all you got to do is hit 1 to 2 guys or just 2 guys in between 6, and the payouts are insane. I'm telling you, Prize Picks puts their members first, so withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. I've done it. It is so much fun. The flex play option is a total game changer. Even when one of your picks misses, you can still double your money. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 off your lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 off or $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks, run your game. God, it's going to be so much fun this season. With some of those guys like Lenora Sellers and Mazio Bennett, Nick Harbor, all the above. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, a bunch getting into the season. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the running back position, Russell Faison, and also what to expect and just some more roster news and notes and wrapping up our interview with JD Pickell. Locked In Gamecocks continues right after this. All right, so we're back with more Locked On Gamecocks. Hope all of you are having a fantastic day. Man, I tell you what, JD touched on it, and something it's like kind of brings the mood down. It bums me out. We're getting closer and closer. I think we're 12 days away now, and we're not any closer to figuring out what's going to happen with Russell Faison. And it sucks, But I keep touching on the fact that it's not. I don't think it's anything that's going to surprise. I don't think it's anything that's going to surprise the staff, right? Hopefully the NCAA will do the right thing, but as of right now, it doesn't really feel like that's the case. And I'm sure we'll get some more updates on it, and we'll have something more definitive. I know there was one person in the comments that was very upset. I didn't talk about Oscar Attaway last week. We'll do a better job of doing that for you this upcoming week. But again, I'm fired up with the season. And I think that the one thing I want to talk about more than anything that JD said, he brought the fact that when I brought the ceiling and the floor question, and I think that anytime you talk with people from the national media, especially about the ceiling and the floor with South Carolina, almost every time you do, it's brought up in a way that's like, well, the ceiling is usually 5 wins. Ceiling was probably about that, or I'm sorry, not ceiling. The floor is like 5 wins. And it was last year. That's kind of how we viewed this team. I think that's what I said going into it. And the ceiling was around 8 or 9. I look at this team and where the program is now, and I love what he said about this linear ascension, or I think he said linear progression, but this ascension you've had as a staff now in a program where it's like, I don't think we're having these giant fall offs. I was on Mike Bratton's show in between filming with JD and then now. And I'll tell you what, we're going to bring Mike on once a week to be on the show, and he's a good friend of mine and does a great job. But him and I were talking about this, off air a while back, and how it does. That feels like it's one of the things. If you turn the corner of the program, that's where you are. One of the people in his audience, though, when we were talking, was, no, man, say Beamer doesn't. Every time they have a good season, they have a terrible season right after, and it's like, no, they don't. No, that happened one time. It happened one time. So I think that one thing that we have seen from where this program is now is I do think that you are seeing the floor being raised, and that's like it's such a cliche thing to say, but it's so spot on. It's so spot on. The floor being raised, not just with the win total, right, but also with what the expectations are. And the biggest thing for me is the talent. And I look at the talent and the win total obviously going hand in hand, and having this idea that, okay, well, you know what, we're going to go into this season and we're going to have, what are we going to have? The over under 7.5. Are they going to be able to go over? I mean, I think that's right about where I draw the line of where the floor is, because I think that 7 is the floor. And I keep looking at this schedule, and I'm like, I'm not saying that they are not going to lose any of these games. I'm not sitting here going to say, like, I'm not ready to say South Carolina's going to be so dominant and they've turned a program where they're not going to lose any games they shouldn't lose, and they're only going to win the games they should win, as well as, or like they're only going to be in situations where they're not going to lose. They lose the games they should lose. They lose and they win the games they should win. And you're not going to have any situation where it's like, oh, well, they got surprised by Kentucky. I'm not saying that's not going to happen, because we've seen it happen before, but it does feel like that is what is going on here. It does, you know what I mean? I don't think I'm explaining that very well. It does feel like that is where this team and program are now living. And I'll tell you what the scary part of this is. I was talking to somebody about this from Twitter that brought this up. Let me bring up their DM, because it was really, really good, and I thought it was really insightful, because we talked so much about this year, as we should, right? But one of the things that he brought up was how he felt about how this team can look. Gamecock Austin, okay? He said, something I thought a lot about that I hate myself for is the 2026 team. Smith, Goodwine, BTJ, Barrett, Attaway. Those are the only players that are seniors. I predict Sellers comes back and Kilgore goes to the draft. OL Young, receiver tight end Young, Fuller Howell, Gustave, I think I'm saying it right, returning. Stewart, GBD, Umazolu, returning. Linebacker, very young. DB, stacked with talented returners. Punter and kicker Young. Returning 90% in 2026 of a team that's preseason number 13 in 2025. We're 12 days away from the season, so I don't want to sit here and start looking at big picture stuff for 2026. But one of the things that makes me feel most comfortable about this program and where it's headed, and most confident in when I talk about it, is this. I've spoken to people on the staff, and I've spoken to, Darren Usher about this, and his confidence and his drive and his focus on this, and what so much of it is coming from is, yeah, it's great where we are. How do we keep taking the next step forward? How do you like that saying, like, never miss a Monday? Like, You celebrate the wins, but it doesn't stop you from moving forward. You don't stop moving forward. And this team and this program has done a really good job of that. I think of like putting in the building blocks and putting themselves in positions to win. And you start seeing now some of the things that they're able to build around, which is like receivers not going to be a concern next year. I don't think defensive backs can be a concern next year. Then you start bringing in some of these other guys in the front seven. Linebacker, I don't think is going to be a concern next year, right? A defensive line, maybe you got some guys that are going to graduate or leave. Either way, but you don't like. I don't see a bunch of guys in that offensive line that are leaving early. You don't have a ton of people as of right now that you look at from this roster and you think that guy might leave for the draft early. You got some key pieces, like Sellers is one of them, right? Harbor could if he has a breakout year. It's crazy things have happened to see people kind of put themselves in spots where they are going to take a risk on somebody like that if there's a production. But he also could have that kind of production this year. But my main point is this idea that you need to win now. There's years where you're like, oh man, this is the window. Ole Miss last year, this is the window. Got to figure out how to win this one now. Miami last year, this is the window. We put so much into this financially and also like from an effort standpoint, like we put so much into this year. This is the window. We have to do it. And you don't really have that with South Carolina. And I don't want to sit here and get, what's the phrase I always use? Too ahead of my skis. But you start looking at what classes are coming in the state, and you're kind of entering those phases where it's like, oh, there's some like really good recruits that we can build around in general just from South Carolina. Like if you get Darius Gray, you got some building blocks for that offensive line for the future from around the country, but there's some guys that you could build like a program and winning seasons around just from this state. And that has not always been the case. So I'm pumped up about this because I think the floor, I'm not saying it's going to continue to rise, but I am saying it's like, man, if you think this year's good, I look at next year and it's like, what happens if all those, like, listen, let's just say this. If you have a chance to go be the number one overall draft pick, you go get drafted number one overall. If you have a chance to go make life-changing money, go make life-changing money. The cool thing about the one cool thing about NIL, there's cases to be made where if you're not going to be a first-round draft pick and you're not slotted for a certain value, maybe Sellers comes back. I want that to happen. And the other part of me is like, I don't want that to happen because I want them to go make millions of dollars, change their lives, change their families' lives, and go do that. But they're doing that now in college too now, where it's like, I'm not, you see situations where I bet you Carson Beck is making more money this year than he would have made if he went pro in year one. Quinn Ewers talking about getting $6 million. And he instead goes pro, and he's not making anywhere close to that. Like I think that 1 year he would have made in college would have been worth more than what he would have made in his entire first contract, maybe as a 7th round pick. So there are situations now where it's like this year I really want South Carolina. I want them to compete in the playoff. I want them to get to be one of those final 12 teams. I want all those things to happen for this program. But then you start looking at some of the stuff in the future, and I think it's a really good point. Like the floor continues to rise for this program. And I think it hasn't happened in a decade where, I mean, listen, it's a spoiled group from 2011 to 2013. Only 4 teams won 11 games or more: Bama, Oregon, Stanford, and South Carolina. And you obviously want to get back to that. But I tell you what, those years, one thing you do have in common now, I don't know if you're going to win 11 games every year for the next 3 years, but the floor of where your expectations are and what performance-wise they're going to have for this team, they're the same. They're trending to be the same. And I think at the very least, you look at this and think, man, like that is something we have not had here in a very long time. And that's a very exciting thing. So just a big picture thing to look at from this year to next. It could get really even more fun in a lot of ways. So listen, before we go to break, I want to give a quick shout out before we close the show to our friends at OpenPhone. Listen, new sponsor of the show, love them to death. If you're running a business, every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not, right? You moved on. That's why you need OpenPhone, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. Do you juggle 2 phones just to keep business and personal calls separate, right? OpenPhone solves that instantly. Your whole team can share one number and respond to customers like a shared inbox. No more who's handling this, anything like that. And there's an AI agent that handles after-hours call, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer again. See why over 60,000 businesses trust OpenPhone. They're offering Locked On customers right now 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedoncollege. That's openphone.com/lockedoncollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, that is going to do it for today's show. I appreciate you guys joining. We got another good one tomorrow. We got Pepper running in here. She's fired up. Great job. We're going to end the show. Okay, sorry, guys. We're getting in the middle of a storm here, so we're going to end this one a little bit early, more than usual. Appreciate you guys. Tomorrow we got Brooks Austin coming on the podcast to talk a lot more about Lenore Sellers because he is very high on him, just like all of us are. So we'll be doing that. Also, if you're listening to this on Tuesday, Wednesday, tune into Paul Feinbaum. I'll be on. I'm not talking South Carolina, talking about the other hated team across the state and their season opener and covering some SEC stuff on Feinbaum. That will be at 3:30 Eastern time. Or 4:30 Eastern time, I think, right? Would love for you guys to tune in. Until then, until next time, go Cox.